Why does a man need religion? Can't we be spiritual but not religious? That's what we'll be talking about on today's episode, right after this.
In today's handshake, we want to talk about the virtue of obedience. This is something completely lost on today's society. The idea of obedience is something that's binding or debilitating, when in fact it's actually liberating and freeing, and something very true to God's ordered creation. So we encourage you to learn more about obedience and to follow us as we discuss obedience.
Before we go any further, we'd like to invite you to subscribe on the podcast player of your choice. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the little bell so you get notifications when we release new content. And then finally, if you've enjoyed the show, we invite you to subscribe to us on Patreon, support our work, and make sure that we can produce more episodes like this.
Great. So in today's episode, we're coming at it from different perspectives, right? Why does man need religion? Mm-hmm. And I was a cradle Catholic, and I moved into the world of religion from, a few months after my birth, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was a little pagan, infant, and then I got baptized, praise God. And now I am a religious male. And I've been a Catholic my entire life. And I didn't embrace the Catholic faith until college, really. Yeah. I followed it. I did it out of obedience, which was good, but it was also a degree of immaturity and lack of knowledge, which I had. And so I'm very grateful for my parents who brought me there. But then when I got into college, the fact that I was Catholic was not only dangerous to me and my friendships, because the religion is telling me what to do and how to do it. Yes. But it is also dangerous to society, the Catholic faith. And so, because it's telling society that things like abortion and euthanasia are wrong, and how to live your life, and marriage, etc. And so I just started getting this whirlwind of attacks from atheists and individuals who had a very progressive mindset. And I had to dive in and learn about the Catholic faith, and that was incredibly enjoyable, and it was a huge blessing for me in college. So that's where I'm coming at the topic of religion from.
Yeah, well, and I too kind of felt a strong pull towards some sort of religious faith, some sort of religious certainty. I know it sounds unusual, but in our culture, relativism is the word of the day.
That's right.
Believe whatever you want. Find your truth. Well, I didn't like that. Yeah. I didn't like that uncertainty, that subjectivity, that I wanted something outside of myself that I could anchor onto in this culture that is so subjective, so confused, so disordered, where one person is saying one thing and the other person is saying the other thing. And I grew up in a Protestant home, but quickly discovered that very similar to the external culture, in many ways, the Protestant culture couldn't agree on very much at all either. So there was this hunger for certainty, for truth, which after several years led me to the Catholic Church. Now, that was a very countercultural thing for a 22-year-old young man to do. And I remember some of my coworkers being fascinated by that. Like, why would this young guy convert? But there was a hunger there. There was a hunger there for transcendence, for truth, for certainty, for peace in a world that was very tumultuous. Did I escape all of those things in coming into the Catholic Church? Absolutely not. Yeah. But the Catholic faith did give me a compass. It did give me a framework by which to order my life and navigate my life.
Yeah, I admire that. And I think that's great. And in many ways, it's unique. And I would say more virtuous, individuals that weren't born into the one true religion, Catholicism, but had to, come to it through grappling, and we must pray for all of our brothers and sisters that are out of the faith. But I want to know more and learn more about your experience in converting to Catholicism, and kind of how that was met with curiosity, but also positive and negative, reactions, I'm sure, with family members and friends and things like that.
Yeah. Well, it was, I would love to share more about my conversion story at the appropriate time, but I really feel like it was confusing to a lot of people.
Yeah.
That would be the kind of the primary reaction that I received, was just confusion. Like, why would you do this?
Yeah, you're a smart man. Why would you do this?
Yeah, why would you become, and of all things, Catholic?
Yeah.
What a strange faith to embrace. But really, it met a longing that I had. And I feel like that's where we started this show with the question, why does a man need religion?
Yeah.
I feel like when a lot of men distract themselves with the pleasures of the world, or climbing the corporate ladder, or getting the bigger house, buying the boat, doing all these worldly things. But when those moments of silence creep in, when all the noise is taken away, and a man really has to face himself, he finds in himself a hunger that the world can't satisfy.
Yes.
And I would say, why does a man need religion? Well, it all starts with wanting to know God.
Yeah.
That's where it all boils down to, is these moments of yearning or hunger for something deeper than the shallow pleasures this world has to offer.
Yeah.
And when we wake up to the reality that we want to know God, the next question is, well, how do I get to know him? And of course, there's many voices out there promising ways to know God. But when we look at religion, the Catholic faith especially, there's this matter of tradition. It's a living organism. The church is not just, the hierarchy or the laity or this snapshot in time.
Yeah.
It's a living organism that spans 2,000 years of history.
Yeah.
And you could try to figure out how to know God yourself, I suppose. Like you could, go out on a mountaintop and meditate for who knows how long, and maybe somehow find some contact with God. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that seems rather foolish. It's like saying, I want to be a scientist, but I'm not going to read any science textbooks. I'm not going to learn from any of the experiments of the past.
Yeah.
I'm just going to start from scratch and try to rebuild the whole scientific paradigm from scratch.
That's right. And when we look at religion as just any list or set of claims on God or gods and the afterlife, we see that there was not a civilization in mankind that did not have some form of religion.
Right. Yeah.
And it is not something that we can escape. And so fast forward to today, where people make religion of football, people make religion of sex, of power, climbing the corporate ladder, like you said. They make religion of, and what do you mean, John? They make religion. Well, they are held in bondage to these vices, right? To these, disordered pursuits in life, or fleeting moments of gratification that they get into a situation where they can't possibly understand the world outside of that, right?
Right.
And so why does man need the one true religion of Catholicism? It's because you're going to serve something, right?
Yes.
You're going to serve some master, and maybe that master is your television, maybe that master is your couch, maybe it's your cell phone, maybe it's, money or alcohol or something like that. But you are going to serve something. Might as well be the right thing, right?
Well,
Might as well be that which is true, that which is good and beautiful.
Yeah, and I think the moment that human beings have woken up to this desire for God, there's a question of, like, how do I relate to God, and how does he relate to me? Which leads to a question of sacrifice. Every religion in the world has a sacrificial component. And what does sacrifice represent? I think it represents a lot of things, but one of them is that the sacred is the core of your life.
Yeah.
It's what gives order and meaning to your life. It's what you structure your life around. So in a lot of like pre-Christian cultures, and there was this idea that you would sow your crops, you would raise your cattle and your sheep, but then you would give some of those back to whatever God you worshipped in order to obtain his blessings. There was this sense of like exchange going on there. And you were talking about like a lot of the worldly pleasures that people serve today. Well, at first they might say, well, that's not a religion. Come on, that's just a habit or whatever. But on the other hand, if you look at the way people order their lives, they're making all kinds of sacrifices to make these pleasures possible.
Yeah.
So think about it. There's a lot of people who have jobs that they hate.
Yeah.
But they put up with it in order to facilitate the 75-inch TV.
That's right.
The vacation, the boat, whatever. They're doing the time. They're making sacrifices in order to live the life that they quote unquote want.
Yeah.
These idols that they've erected that will never satisfy them ultimately, but they're making sacrifices in exchange for the God of pleasure, the God of entertainment,
That's right.
the God of sexual pleasure, or whatever the thing that happens to ensnare them is.
Yeah.
Think of a drug addict. Okay, that's an extreme case, but they will make any sacrifice necessary in order to obtain that next hit.
Yeah.
And likewise, many of us will do so in lesser ways for to obtain the things that we worship.
Yeah.
So yes, religion is inevitable in human nature. The question then becomes, which religion?
Yeah.
Which one answers all the longings and instincts of the human heart?
That's right. And
most fully.
And I would say that just look at society's reflection of the religion that society supports, right? Mm-hmm. We erect that which we prioritize. Mm-hmm. And we have football fields, these stadiums which are larger than any church, baseball stadiums larger than any church in the entire area, right? And then you go into not only does, and I love football, but not only does football happen on Sunday, the Lord's Day, right? So we work our schedule around not missing that football game. Well, I have to go to Mass earlier, or some people miss Mass. I got to go on Saturday night, or I got to go on Sunday night so that I can make sure I get, this primary form of liturgy. Then you walk into someone's house, and instead of an altar place in their house with the Immaculate and Sacred Heart, above it, you've got this huge TV and prominence in their house, right? And we give attention to that which we serve and that which we prioritize. And so, but, just that was coming out of my mind as you were talking about society and serving. And we kind of focus our lives around these things, that just being one example. But you're exactly right. So,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to give some examples culturally.
Yeah.
Like the Super Bowl. It's like a liturgical event.
It is.
It's like a feast day.
It is.
And Prime Day, Amazon Prime Day,
happened,
like another liturgical holiday in our secular consumerist culture.
Yeah.
Like religion is inevitable.
Yeah.
Which God do you serve? That's the ultimate question.
Yeah, exactly. And so for those of us who are Catholic, and I don't know if it's the time to jump right into this, but for those of us who are Catholic, right, anybody who's looked at the Catechism of the Council of Trent, right, can see the whole first section, the whole beginning is basically, why does man need religion, and why does man need the true religion? And because there are false prophets out there that will come, and they will dictate that which part of Scripture or that which part of virtues we need to focus on, right? There's also the fact that man, left up to our own wares, is going to pick and choose what fits our selfish desires.
Yes.
Neither of us are void of this. Yeah. And so to have that teaching authority, which can be there as the ultimate guide, right? Mm-hmm. And so, yes, we can go into, proof for the existence of God, and we can go into, the argument for desire, right? And we can go into these different things. But once we've come to that as Catholic gentlemen, and as hopefully, most of our listeners are, we have to then ask that question, why this faith or this religion and not another one that may be more suited to my lifestyle or the way I'd prefer to live.
Well, and that's why we see this emergence of this spiritual but not religious.
Yes.
The ultimate God of our current age is consumeristic choice.
Yes.
That is the God of our age. And what you see is people seeing the world's religions as just this smorgasbord of practices, traditions. I'll take something from Buddhism over here. I'll take something from Hinduism over here. Maybe I'll take something from like American Indian shamanism over here. Maybe I like this Christian tradition. I'll take that too. And it just becomes this consumeristic choice, but of all these spiritual practices. But at the end of the day, the real God that you're serving is yourself.
Yeah.
My pleasures, my desires, what makes me feel good, what is the most fulfilling to me, what brings me peace.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll meditate because that like makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll even like pray the rosary because hey, it's kind of calming and like relaxing. Do I really care about like Jesus or Mary? Of course not, but it's like it's a cool practice, right? And like, you know, that's just kind of the spirit of the age is consumeristic choice, and religions have become commodities for people.
That's right.
You know? I remember being at a department store and seeing, you know, this statue in a yoga pose, you know, with yoga pants.
Okay.
Well, at once upon a time, yoga was like a sacred practice of the Hindu religion. Well, now it's just a commodity.
Yeah.
Like it's one more consumeristic choice among many. And so nobody takes any of this seriously. Nobody really cares about knowing God and offering him the worship due his name. It has nothing to do with that.
That's right.
It's all just about us and our desires. And that's really appalling, really, when we get down to it. It's a destruction of the sacred.
Yeah.
And I feel like we must, I shouldn't say I feel like, I'm convinced that we must recover a sense of the sacred.
Yeah, I agree.
Religion is not a commodity.
No, it certainly isn't. And it's important to state that religion and the true religion isn't there to make our lives easy, right? It's there to...
If you want that, don't become Catholic.
That's right. It's there to make our lives ordered rightly. It's make our lives just, you know, and how we exist. And we live in this time where we end up, you know, whether we realize it or not, picking and choosing that which we want. And in fact, that goes back to the beginning. Like if you had been practicing Buddhism and you told a bunch of people, they'd probably be like, oh, good for you. Yeah, no worries. Right. You know, but the fact that you're practicing Catholicism, because Catholicism is a dangerous religion to society because it actually gives rules, regulations, you know, order, because it understands God's natural order, and it also understands God's divine order that he's given us, and it requires something of us.
Yeah. All true religion should demand something of you. You know, and that's why people pick and choose, because it requires no commitment. It requires nothing from them.
Yeah.
There's no sacrifice involved. It just makes them feel good.
That's
you know,
right.
And I think that, you know, when we look at the Catholic faith, again, if you want to feel good, don't become Catholic, because that's not what it's about. It's about rightly ordering us to the divine, to the higher spiritual plane that really exists. Like, how can we live our lives in light of that reality? Well, the Catholic faith guides us how to do that.
Yeah.
And that's not always going to be comfortable. That's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to make us feel happy and fulfilled, or whatever the world says is what religion should do.
That's right. And left up to our own, you know, thoughts and opinions, we're led to whatever the majority, you know, dictates, and whatever we feel. So we move in the realm of heresy, you know, honestly. And we can say that as Catholics, that, you know, the church and the true religion protects us from heresy. And I think of St. John Henry Newman, right, when he converted to Catholicism, and he wrote about this in his Apologia. And when he finally made that conversion point, he stated, the most liberating aspect for me was that my opinion no longer mattered.
Yeah.
And he was just so excited about the fact that his opinion, right? It didn't have to be the religion according to John Henry Newman, right? It was the religion of Christ. And that we are subject out of obedience to that religion of Christ. And again, the church makes claims on our lives, not to make our lives easy, but to make our lives better and fulfilled and ordered towards our eternal reward and eternal happiness.
Yeah, G.K. Chesterton once said, that a Catholic is someone who has plucked up the courage to admit that someone is wiser than he is. And it really is true, though, because while everybody thinks that being able to kind of invent or concoct your own hybrid religion from all these practices, or to be your own ultimate arbiter of truth, to be your own pope, I guess, is a liberating thing. In reality, it's like a crushing responsibility.
Yeah.
To have to figure out everything from scratch for yourself, that's a huge, massive responsibility. And it's actually quite liberating to submit your reason and conscience to something that is much larger, has existed much longer than you have.
Yeah.
And the wisdom of the church is that it has all these shining saints and philosophers and poets and theologians and thinkers that have really pondered every question known to man.
Yeah.
And to be able to take that responsibility on yourself to figure all that out on your own.
Impossible.
Let's just take an example, okay?
Yeah.
Why suffering, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a huge question that a lot of people wrestle with. Well, you could wrestle with that with yourself for maybe the rest of your life and still not really have an answer. Well, the church has wrestled with this question too for like 2,000 years.
Yeah.
And there are some of the most brilliant theologians and minds working on these difficult human questions that are very real.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we shouldn't wrestle with them ourselves, but to have the wisdom of 2,000 years of tradition to offer you insights.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you'll always find the easy answers, but at the same time, why would you not take advantage of this incredible tradition?
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of like a musician or a philosopher or a scientist trying to learn everything from scratch.
Yeah.
That's just foolishness.
It is.
Like, you got to learn from somebody. You got to learn from the masters.
Yeah.
What are the spiritual masters? Well, they're the saints and doctors of the church.
That's right. And I like that. I was watching an episode some sort of news interview with Joel Osteen, where Joel Osteen was standing up there and they asked him some of these probing questions about suffering and about evil. And he just kept on saying, well, I don't know everything, I'm not, there's different interpretations and different days of reading it. And I'm just thinking to myself, that's not an answer, right? That's an evasion. And how to live our hope and our hope and salvation and our belief system and that which we move and exist and have our being in this life from a man who admitted to like every question that was being thrown at him that he doesn't have all the answers.
Right.
It's like, well, then I need to go to somebody who at least has some answers, right? And I think that's exactly right. That the church can provide us with structure and with that guidance that we're so in desperate need of in our search for truth.
It's a spiritual current that is powerful and strong and has existed for thousands of years. So it's a really ridiculous example. I'm sorry, I have 5 kids. I think of kids' movies.
All the time, yep.
But I would think about Finding Nemo.
Yep.
Like, the dad was like wandering around in the ocean all by himself, trying to figure things out. And he's just kind of lost in this massive, vast ocean. Then he comes across, the current, the slipstream, like what's the name of that? The big, powerful current that carries everything along.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
the
so
turtles were in there. And,
the turtles, and so it's like he jumps into that current, and suddenly he's going extremely fast in the right direction. It's kind of like that. Well, you can wander around. And try to figure things out, but you're just going to end up lost and confused and no further than when you started. But the church is that powerful current rushing towards heaven, essentially. Place yourself in that. you're going to be swept along in the right direction.
Yeah, that's so true.
That's the purpose of the church.
That's right. And then to take it just a step further, if we believe in God and we believe in the God who gave us the Holy Roman Catholic and Apostolic Church, then it is, as we say in every Mass, right and just so to do, or meet and right, so to do. It is right and just to give God his appropriate place and his appropriate honor due and reverence due in the order of God's creation, right? And so I like to bring up examples, and we brought up one this morning, and I read the example of the ground subject to the grass, to the goat, and I was using one, the ground subject to the flowers, which is subject to the bees, which is subject, the bees' honey is subject to us, and we're subject to God. I bring this up real fast, but I bring this up just to, there is divine order in God's creation. And in that divine order, in our subjugation to our supreme, author and creator of life, who holds everything into existence in this very moment, or whenever you're listening or watching to this, we owe it to him as a matter of justice and as a matter of our duty to serve him right and serve him faithfully. And we need the authority in the religion of our fathers and the religion of Catholicism to guide us appropriately, to better understand God and to better serve him faithfully.
Yeah. And to the why the Catholic Church, well, it really goes back to the fundamental Christian belief that Jesus is the revelation of the face of God. He is the ultimate manifestation of who God is. Because that's always been the question since the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Of why or how do we know God? Remember, like, how do we relate to God? How does God relate to us? As soon as people woke up to the reality of God, that was their question. Well, Jesus, as Christians, we believe that Jesus is the ultimate answer to that question. He is the revelation of the Father, the Father's character, the Father's goodness, the Father's sacrifice, in the sense that, I don't want to get too far afield, but I really feel like the cross is a revelation of the character of God. It's the ultimate self-giving God. That's who God is.
Yeah.
And Christ reveals that to us. But then the next step is, well, Christ left teaching. He left a church. He founded a church, an ecclesia, a community. Which one is that? Well, anyone, as you mentioned, John Henry Newman, he said, the further back you go, the more you realize that the Catholic Church is the church that Jesus founded. So there's a very logical sequence there. I need to know God. How do I know God? Well, there's many claims to that, but Christ is the ultimate revelation of the Father.
Agreed.
You embrace that claim. The next question is, how do I know Christ? In the community that he founded, the church that he founded, that's the Catholic Church. So we've gone from the instinct to know God to the revelation of God, the ultimate revelation of God in Christ, to the church that he founded. And that is ultimately why I became Catholic, because there's no other choice at that point.
Yeah, praise God. I can't add anything to that. That's great. It's very powerful. So something else, just kind of practically speaking, in addition to helping us men grow in holiness and achieve our eternal salvation and that of our family or those that we love and we are close to, religion also scientifically has bettered the lives of men, right? If we're looking at statistics and science, men who are devout practicing religion live longer, generally speaking, have a happier life, have a more prosperous life, are more content, and have less mental issues. Again, these are statistics, but they're statistics that help us point to an ultimate reality, that we as men can live up to and be a part of.
Yeah, right. I mean, think about it. If you are hungry and there's no food and you never eat, it's going to lead to consequences. You're going to waste away. You're going to be sick. You're going to die.
I like this.
Well, likewise, there's a human instinct, a craving for the divine. And if that's not satisfied, it's going to introduce all kinds of disorders into your life. But two, like, I think people underestimate, we were talking at the beginning about obedience.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, I'm a wild, free man. I'd make my own choices.
Right.
Americans are kind of in love with this independent cowboy image,
That's
out
right.
on the plains, needing nobody. But in reality, if you look at the history of men in history, we want to pledge our fealty.
Yeah.
We want to pledge our power to something higher than ourselves. And there's something freeing in that. Like you think of like in the medieval literature movies or the movies about the Middle Ages, always like, my liege, I pledge myself to you.
Right.
And these powerful knights that were warriors and things like that.
That's captivating.
Yeah, they wanted to pledge their power and their strength and their manhood to a lord.
Yeah.
And
something higher than themselves.
Yeah. And even today, like, we want to pledge allegiance to something. We want to give ourselves to something wholeheartedly, give our life to it, give our powers to it, and sacrifice to it. And, probably the closest thing we have to that culturally is maybe like the military.
Yeah.
Where people give their lives to the military. They have a clear hierarchy that they serve. And a lot of men are drawn to that because it's one of the last places in our culture where you can do that.
Yeah.
But religiously, men want to kneel before something.
Yeah.
They want to bow down before something. I know it sounds strange in our individualistic age, but I think that really is an instinct that men have.
Yeah.
I want a God to serve. I want a God to worship. I want to lay down my powers before a God.
Yeah.
And when that's not satisfied, we're going to turn to all kinds of other silly, petty things to fill that craving, but it's never going to work.
Yeah, exactly. When it is written within us, right, and we don't acknowledge that or accept that, we'll find that which is most pleasing, fleeting in many cases, in the moment, and we'll go from one thing to the other, blind and lost and unhappy, right? It doesn't bring a happy existence. Something else that we were talking about, I just look at the 10 Commandments, right? And those orders, right? In the first commandment, that we must, have God. Well, there's God, and we must have no others beside Him. We have to obey Him. And the first 3 commandments are about God, and then it's not taking His name in vain, and then it's keep holy the Sabbath day. But then the 4th one is honoring your father and your mother. It's that order right there, right? And if you could imagine that you were to treat your children just as like close friends, and you weren't really helping and guiding them like God the Father is helping and guiding us, they will run amok. And we see this happen so many times with kids that haven't been appropriately parented, appropriately guided. They have entitlement issues. They don't know how to keep a job. They struggle. Actually, it happens statistically more with incarceration and things like that, depending on which way their temperament
struggle with their own
goes.
Relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we need hierarchy. We need order. We need again, to pledge ourselves to something higher than ourselves. And also, too, I think we underestimate the power of forgetting about yourself.
Yeah.
Do you want to find true joy and fulfillment? Lose yourself in something more than yourself.
Yeah.
So you think about like going to the Grand Canyon. No one goes to the Grand Canyon to think about themselves.
Right.
That would be stupid.
Yeah.
When you go there, you just, wow. Wow. You're like drawn out of yourself. Like it's like a moment of transcendence that just to think about yourself before something so vast and amazing is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And likewise, like we're told the lie over and over that the way to fulfillment is to satisfy all your desires. Well, in reality, that just leads to misery.
Yeah.
The way to really satisfy or to find fulfillment is to forget about your desires and lay them before something much vaster and more grand than you are, which is God. He's the ultimate. He is the supreme.
Agreed. So I think in the end, that is why many, many reasons why men need religion.
Yes.
So for our nightcap, I wanted to talk about, obviously, actually another form of servitude. I wanted to talk about my miraculous metal ring here.
Yes.
So this is the ring that I chose as an outward sign of my total consecration to Our Lady.
Yes.
So a lot of people wear the chains and things like that, as St. Louis de Montfort recommended. I actually had this miraculous metal ring custom made, and I'll make sure that I got some pictures of it, so people can see it. But what is this? This is an external sign of my willful slavery, as St. Louis de Montfort said, to Our Lady, trusting in her perfect guidance to enrich and fulfill and bring closer my relationship to Christ, her Son. I can do so humbly. I can do so with her help and her aid, knowing that she drives all things towards Christ, her Son, whom I love and adore. And so I think I also got it to be a little bit more masculine in size, right? Yeah. So it kind of looks like a college ring, and most people think that it's a college ring on me. Yeah. I've worn it for 11 years or so. And but in fact, it's actually that which I truly serve, you know, and that which I hope to remind myself of. So I've got the graces, the miraculous medal, got the Sacred Heart of Jesus on one side, Totus Tuus on the other side, and and I did so in a way that I would feel strong and feel proud of wearing as an outward sign.
It's funny you said it looks like a college ring.
Yeah.
Well, what did most people call their college? My alma mater. But that means in Latin is nurturing mother.
That's right.
So Our Lady is your actual alma mater, your true nurturing mother.
She is. Yeah. So, well, thank you, Sam. This was great. I really enjoyed this episode, and just as we need to be reminded, and as we remind everybody when we finish these,
be a man, be a saint.
Thanks for watching.